Hi everybody! Let's talk about printmaking. Printmaking is one of my favorite ways of creating art. But what is printmaking? Printmaking is an artistic process or series of steps to create copies of an image from an original. Why do we want to create images from an original? To know that, we have to go back to early China. Around 105 AD in China, paper was invented. In order to make prints, you need paper. Paper was created by a Chinese worker named Kai Lun. He took fibers from a bamboo and mulberry plant and added water to these to make a pulp that he pounded with a wooden tool. After he poured the water/pulp mixture over a flat wooden cloth, which acted like a screen, the water was drained out and it dried. What was left was the fibers of the plants that had dried together. Kai Lun created paper. With the invention of paper came the need for things made out of paper, like books. Before printmaking, books were very difficult to make. Each page was hand-painted, so imagine every day your job was to come in and paint or write the same page for the same book over and over and over again. That's a lot of work, and that's kind of boring work, right? So with the invention of woodcuts, the Chinese could create books faster to spread word about their practice religion, Buddhism. For a woodcut, an artist would draw or paint their image on a very thin piece of paper. Usually they were using ink. They would take the image and glue it face down on their wooden block. Why do you think they glued it face down? Because by placing their images face down, they would reverse the image on the carved out block. After they carved it, inked it, and printed on the block, the images or text would be in the right direction. So it takes a little bit of planning. Fast forward to the invention of the printing press in 1440 by Johann Gutenberg in Germany. Publications like books and newspapers began to increase in popularity. This is because they were easier to make. The press included movable type, which means the printer could arrange and rearrange the text on the page whenever it was needed. Today, our newspapers are full of images that are printed in color. But before, we did not have the ability to print photographs in newspapers. Instead, you might see in old newspapers, the images were created from a printmaking process called wood engraving. Wood engraving is very similar to the woodcut process. Here, an artist takes a photograph and hand copies it onto a wooden block. They carve away the parts of the image that they don't want to print, so a lot of the white space, and then they send it to the press. It was a lot of work for only one day to be in the newspaper. So now you can see that printmaking was invented because there needed to be an easier way to make copies of something from an original. Today, printmaking is more of an art form because we have things like printers that can make copies and we have technology. And sometimes artists like to look at processes, and there are lots of different processes in printmaking. There are 4 main printmaking processes, and each of them are a little bit different. I'm not including monoprinting because in a monoprint you only create one image. No matter what in all your printmaking processes, you need 3 things. You need surface, ink, and pressure. The 4 kinds of printmaking I'm going to talk about are relief printmaking, which is what we're going to do, screen printing, lithography, and intaglio. In relief printmaking, you have a surface, which can be wood, rubber, or linoleum, which you ink up after you carve. You send it through a press, or you hand burnish it to print an image. You're making a big stamp. Screen printing consists of transferring an image onto a mesh screen, blocking out the parts you don't want to print, and pressing or scraping ink across the screen so that the ink comes through the screen and onto the paper. Lithography is a very interesting form of printmaking. Here, an artist is using special crayons or marking tools to draw an image on a really big, smooth rock. They add a little bit of chemicals to the surface so that it makes it kind of wet, and when they run it through a press, they pull the image off the stone. And finally, intaglio, or sometimes called etching, is a form of printmaking where an artist scratches an image into a copper plate. They cover the block in ink, pressing the ink into the carved lines. Then they run damp paper through a press to pull the image off the block.
created using Powtoon.